welcome back to Mr. Bear Likes to Watch. And I'm dead inside because I was just subjected, and yes, I said subjected, to The Strangers, Chapter 1. The first thing I want to say about this movie is Renny Harlin, fuck. Why? What in the fuck was that bullshit? I didn't have high hopes for this going in, but I was somewhat optimistic. It's based on truly interesting, like, villain characters. And I was like, how bad could it get? Well, as it turns out, it can get pretty fucking bad. This movie mirrors the original Strangers in many ways. We're following a couple. I mean, nobody proposed here, so they're like a happy couple in a good place, and they're road tripping to somewhere for something, and I don't fucking remember what or why, because I didn't give a fuck. So they pull off into this small town, take a detour, to grab a bite to eat before they continue on with their journey. It's a little small town called Venus, population 400 and something. And they hit up this little place called Carol's Diner. And this is when I knew this movie was going to be just an absolute piece of shit. When they walk in, every motherfucker in this diner was all like, menacing glances, almost trying to make them all look like suspects, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, but suspects who are eyeballing the outsiders and trying to look menacing and potentially scary. They eat their meal, go back out to the car, which of course won't start, but thank God they're right beside a mechanic, like an auto mechanic shop. Unfortunately, however, the part that they need to get this car fixed and get back on the road is not going to be able to be fetched until morning. So, with this being such a small town, of course, there's no motel, but they're told about an Airbnb owned by a hunter who isn't staying there right now because it's not hunting season. And thank God they have a nice, safe place to rest for the night. So some girl from the restaurant or whatever, like, drops them off there, and they start their little cutesy romantic night, in their little cabin in the woods and whatever. And then, of course, here comes a knock at the door. A boring bitch is there asking for Tamara. I guess we knew that this is how it was going to go. Like I said, this mirrors the first one in a lot of ways. They try to switch some things up a little bit, but it's essentially the same thing. And come to find out after this that homeboy has asthma, so he has to unfortunately go back into town to get his inhaler because homegirl forgot to grab it and put it in the bags when they packed their shit up. And luckily for them, there is a motorcycle on the property that they have keys to. So he decides to ride that into town. Baby girl is hungry and says, grab some food while you're there and bring it back. So after he gets his inhaler and gets accosted by the mechanic who's going to be fixing his car with these, he stops by what looks like a food shack or like a food truck to get like burgers with no meat for her, because we are told numerous times, it is made abundantly clear that she's a vegetarian. And I don't know if they're trying to like make her look like someone who would be like awful to these like small town people or whatever, like this big city vegetarian and whatever, but they hammer that shit home that the bitch doesn't eat meat. So after encountering more locals, more threatening glances, more suspect looking glances, he heads back to the house. While he's been gone, of course, she's started to be terrorized. in many of the same ways as before. Knocks at the door, sounds outside, you see people in the house, all this kind of shit. Only this time it just is so not well done, and it's so bland and uninspired and stupid that it had no impact for me. And when he gets back, they start getting strangered hard as fuck. And just like as you would suspect, the same type of shit. Knocks, terror, people in the house, all this kind of shit. So earlier in the night, they discovered that the fridge at this Airbnb is not working. They tried to put beer in there to keep it cold. And they ended up calling the number left by the Airbnb people or whatever just to say, hey, the fridge isn't working. Just wondered if we might be able to have someone look at it or whatever. They're only going to be there for the night. Like, I can't imagine how important this is to them. But the reason it's important is because through these chase sequences, as they're being strangered, somebody shows up. They've found a shotgun at this point. I mean, it is a hunter's cabin. And they blow this man away thinking they've gotten one of the strangers. I mean, come to find out, of course, it's just the man who was coming to, like, look at the refrigerator. And when I say that the decisions made by these people in this movie are so insufferable, they're so idiotic, they almost never make sense. And they make, like, the decisions made by the characters in The Strangers Prey at Night look well thought out. If that tells you anything. And there are so many times in this film, not so many, but there are some times here where these people truly have the upper hand and do not take advantage of it. In the first The Strangers from 2008, the victims in that movie never have the upper hand, in my opinion. They do a time or two in Prey at Night and choose not to use it. And then here, they definitely do, and then choose not to use it, but in even dumber ways. Throughout this chase sequence, they get separated. Homegirl had grabbed a cell phone off of the guy that they blew away, the innocent man they blew away, and is hiding in, like, leaves or some shit, and reaches out to 911. The call gets disconnected during this because, I mean, they are in the middle of nowhere. So we don't really ever know what the resolution was there, if they were ever able to, like, pinpoint a location or any of that kind of shit. And as they're separated, the man comes across one of the female strangers and has a shotgun to this bitch's head, to her face, and never pulls that trigger. I take one of the bitches out. Take one of them. There are 3. Better your chances here. That's what you've got to do. But instead, he lollygags. She acts a fucking fool, grabbing the gun, laughing, like pulling it toward her face, acting like crazy. And it was so dumb. And it felt so dumb and so not scary, so not compelling in any way. And because he takes so long to do this bullshit and has to say 5 million fucking things, of course he gets knocked unconscious by one of the other ones and gets drugged inside the house. Little homegirl gets found too, drugged inside the house to recreate the ending of the original movie, basically. They're tied up. They love each other. They're crying. He asks her to marry him. She says yes. And the strangers take turns stabbing them. So after they're stabbed, chairs kicked over, left for dead, we hear sirens coming. So clearly the 911 call worked, and the strangers are like, and hop to it and get in the car and just narrowly escape the cops basically arriving. And unfortunately, I think what this movie is setting up is almost like what feels sort of like a whodunit sort of thing. But if that is what they're going to go for, and that is what it feels like in a lot of ways, like especially with trying to make every person in town look menacing and like a suspect and all this stuff, like it's just not going to have any impact because we don't know who any of these people are. They're mainly really just characters we saw them interact with for a second in the diner, and that is it. So if they're hoping for some kind of like big impactful like reveal in like these following movies, of which there will be 2 more, they've already been shot, and I can't imagine how in the hell there are going to be 2 more movies based in what's going on here. And like I said, if they're going to try to make it like some big like who done it, it's going to have just absolutely no impact. I mean, I'm going to definitely go see the next movie whenever they release it and hope that maybe they find their footing. But I really suspect that they won't. Like, about the only positive that I can give this movie is that it looks pretty good. Like, from a cinematography standpoint, there are some great shots, like in the woods, and the lighting looks cool and all of that. But other than that, there just is no tension here. It's so bland. It's so uninspired. And this, like, sort of cliffhanger ending that they want to leave us on with the strangers escaping and then cut to a hospital room and we see that homegirl has survived. I'm going to assume her man is dead. I wouldn't be surprised with how idiotic this is if he fucking is still alive too. I just honestly wouldn't be surprised. But we only see that she has survived in a to be continued. Like they're trying to like leave you hanging for more. Well, bitch, I'm going to go see your shit, but you ain't leaving me hanging for nothing because I didn't give a fuck by the end of this. So this is absolutely not something I can recommend. Really, I wouldn't even know who to recommend this to. It's just poorly done, poorly executed, bland, boring, Hollywood garbage. And I hate to say that about it. I'm a fan of this franchise, but this just was not the worst movie I've seen this year. That still belongs to Taro, but this is second place for me, and it's bleak, and not in the way that the original is bleak, as in bleak, menacing, scary. This is bleak as in poor decision making bleak. So anyway, thank you so much for coming back to the channel. My next review is going to be I Saw the TV Glow. I was going to go see that tonight after I got out of this, but I wasn't in the right frame of mind. I didn't want to carry baggage from this movie into something else, and I'd rather be in a fresher state, in a better mood, so I'm not potentially ruining a movie. But yeah, I plan to see that Monday. A similar review to this will be up shortly after that. And again, thanks guys. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see y'all later.